Hey there, it's Hudson Henry, back to do another Perfect Inspiration video. I want to thank On1 for having me back to do another one of these great series of videos on just doing what I love to do, photographing and editing images from adventures, travels, client work. And today I want to talk a little bit about an image that I captured on a big adventure with my wife Stacy right here in the Pacific Northwest last weekend. I'm going to go through the images in Lightroom 5, which is my raw image editor of choice. It's where I import my images, edit them, get the raw edits done, and get them ready to export into Perfect Photo Suite 8.5 for my final adjustments. And this weekend we started out at Sauvie Island doing a little kiteboarding. I'm going to go into the loop view. And this is my wife Stacy, just having a little bit of fun on the Columbia River just north of Portland. When we got there, we found our friends out teaching their daughters how to kiteboard and doing a little bit of body dragging. And the girls were just having so much fun ripping down the river. They're going to be up on board soon. We had other friends just tearing it up. It was a beautiful day, and it was actually tough to leave, but we needed to meet friends, and we hopped in the car and scurried up to Mount Rainier National Park. I grabbed this shot just kind of quickly out the window of the car on a bridge, and I was scurrying, trying to find a place to make a great landscape photo. I thought maybe the mountain would peek out from the clouds and I'd have color, so I scrambled down a mud embankment, got out into the Nisqually River, only to find that the mountain was completely obscured, and I just watched the color drain out of the clouds without the mountain really making an appearance. And it just serves as a reminder that for every great landscape image, there are a whole bunch of nights and early mornings just sort of waiting for nothing to happen, and this was one of those. I couldn't help creating this image of just all the debris coming down the Nisqually River. The mountains, glaciers are just pumping all this heavy debris down the mountain, and it was a nice post-sunset sky. So we spent the night at Paradise Inn, and the next morning we got up with friends and started up the mountain with skis and skins and backcountry bindings that allow you to climb up the mountain. Here my friend Trevor is using his backcountry split snowboard. And along the way, I happened upon this family of hoary marmots who were just sort of sitting alongside the trail critiquing us all as we went by. And I want to come back to this image. This is the one that we're going to work on and just improve in Lightroom and Perfect Effects 8.5 today. So we traveled up the mountain. It's tough work. Even the marmots get tired just watching us. Certainly the skiers get tired. Here Stacy's taking a little nap on the rocks. And here we have our friend Gina at the top of the climb, gearing up for what was one of the most epic ski descents. 4,600 feet of just perfect corn snow, blue skies. Just watch for the crevasses and point them down towards paradise. It was really a lot of hard-earned but well worth it turns getting back down the mountain. And along the way, I saw this cute little dude sitting out on this just sort of amazing rock perch surveying his valley below. And I couldn't help hopping into his spot and having my buddy Kevin snap this really awesome shot of me. Thanks, Kevin. So there you have a really nice weekend in the Pacific Northwest. And it just reminds me of why I love to be a photographer here. So let's go back into Lightroom here and click on our marmot photo. And I'm going to use the tab key to, actually the shift tab key, to get all my panels back. And I want to go into the develop module, and let's do some raw edits on this image and see if we can improve it a little bit here in Lightroom. I'm going to start out, of course, with exposure. It looks just slightly underexposed to me, and I can see that in the histogram. So I'm going to pull it up a bit. I think this looks a little bit nicer, about half a stop. There's definitely room for more contrast in the image. Watching the histogram up here, I'm going to add a touch of contrast. And then the next thing I do, I actually skip the highlights and shadows adjustments and save those, and I come back down, I press the Option key or the Alt key on a PC, Option on Mac, and I move my white point sliders to just test where I'm blowing my highlights out. It's actually very acceptable to me. They look pretty good the way they are. I'm going to check the black point the same way by holding down that Option key, and I'm going to just get to where I'm starting to clip shadows to really get all the contrast I can out of the image. And now that I've got my black point and my white point set, I'm going to go back and just adjust the highlights and shadows to taste. So I want to tone the highlights down here a bit. And I'm just going to kind of watch it till I get the look that I like, somewhere right in there. I'm getting a little more detail in those glaciers and in the snow. And then I'm gonna turn the shadows up. I want to see a little more detail in these hoary marmots, which sounds kind of funny, doesn't it? So here we go. I'm gonna tone it up about like that. Wow, it's just amazing how well Lightroom does with boosting shadows. And then I noticed that I've got this dust speck from my sensor. I actually had a very dirty sensor that day. I've cheated a little bit. I'm gonna go into Lightroom's dust removal tool. You can see I've actually done a little bit of this already. It was a very dirty sensor. I should have cleaned it before this trip. I'm going to make sure that my brush in the spot removal tool is set to heal. And I can change the size and feather here, but I can also just use the bracket keys on my keyboard to size it. And if I'm having trouble seeing where all the dust specks might be, there's this neat feature that Lightroom has, visualize spots. You click it and they just stand out, particularly in the sky or just a uniform section of your image. Click on that and it is gone. We turn it back off. We can see where Lightroom sampled that for the spot removal and no more problem. So that's our basic adjustments in the Lightroom's Develop module. I'm going to go in and I'm going to tone the sky down a little bit. I want to darken it a little bit. And the way I'm going to do that is in the hue, saturation, and luminance adjustments. I'm going to go into the luminance section and click on this little bullseye, which is a targeted adjustment tool. And I'm just going to hover over the sky, click and drag my mouse or my trackpad down to just darken that sky a little bit. It's just darkening the blues, the color that I'm hovering over. Yeah, I really like that. That's just a little bit of an improvement. And then the final thing that I would do on this image is some detail adjustments in Lightroom, which I've actually already done. I've gone through and done a little bit of sharpening, and that's, again, a little bit broader topic that I'm not going to go to in a perfect inspiration video. But, you know, I've just worked to sharpen up this little guy a little bit because our digital sensors tend to dull the images, and if we've got anti-aliasing filters, it does it a little bit more, as most cameras do. So that basically concludes our Lightroom edits, and now the thing to do is to go into Perfect Effects 8.5 to use ON1's powerful and intuitive tool set to really finish this image, to give it some pop, to maybe get rid of some of the dirty snow in this image, to do some other things that I have in mind. So I'm going to right click on the image or control click on the Mac. I'm going to run up to Edit In, and I'm going to choose Edit in Perfect Effects 8, which you can see is one of my most popular by default actions. And I'm going to choose to edit it in a Photoshop document because Photoshop documents support layers, and ON1 is a layered workflow. And I always choose the color space ProPhoto RGB, and the simple reason is that it's the widest possible gamut color space, so I'm less likely to clip and lose data as I'm editing the image. If I'm in that color space, I'll obviously convert it out to put it out to the web into sRGB or one of the more popular web-based color spaces. I'm going to stick with 16 bits because that's the broadest I can go, the highest quality, and I'm going to hit Edit. So now we have our new PSD file in ON1's Perfect Photo Suite 8.5 in the Perfect Effects module. And we have an empty layer on our filter stack. The first thing I tend to like to do for anything but most portrait images is add a little pop, a little mid-tone contrast with the dynamic contrast filter. And my general starting point is the natural preset. And one of the things that I just love about ON1's dynamic contrast filter is the ability, I'm going to close down these blending options here, the ability to manipulate exactly where the effect is taking place in my image. So here I've got all this fine detail in the marmot's fur. If I draw this slider up, it'll just make them look like bristly porcupines. I mean, that's way too much. But I do want to add a little local contrast in their fur, just make them pop a little bit. And other than that, I think that the effect, I like what it's done in the medium and large. I might tone down the large details a little bit. I don't necessarily need the mountain to pop quite that much out of the sky. You know, it's going to do these big contrasty lines. So in this case, I'm toning that down a little bit. I think otherwise, it's just made a really nice change in the image. I'm going to add another layer now to the filter stack. And the next thing that I want to do is add a little bit of an adjustment brush, a lightening effect, to make the marmot's eyes pop out a little bit. They're a little bit shadowed to me. And by using an adjustment brush, what it does is it puts a black mask over the layer. It lightens the layer, but then puts a mask over it, and you use your masking brush to paint the effect in. I'm going to turn my opacity down just a little bit, maybe 75%, let's say. I'm just going to start, I'm going to use the bracketing keys, just like I did in Lightroom for the spot healing tool. And I'm just going to kind of paint a little bit of the effect back into the marmot's eyes. Just want their little eyes to stand out a little bit. And you can see how it's applying that on my layer mask on the filter stack. And here we've got Junior's eye sort of popping out a little bit. And then I can actually adjust how much this effect is working. Right now the default is set at 70, but I can make it brighter or darker, and you can see how that affects. I liked it at about 70. I think right in there is about just what I was looking for. And you can see it's small, but it makes a dramatic difference. We're able to identify with something more if we can really see its eyes better. I'm not sure I want the effect on this marmot's nose, on the Papa Marmot's nose, so I'm going to switch to paint out. I'm going to reduce my brush a little bit, and I'm just going to paint that effect back out of his nose a little bit. There we go. So now, see, the effect is really just hitting the eyes. So the next thing I want to do is I want to play with the sky just a little bit, just see how it goes with a little color enhancer filter. So I've added with the plus symbol another filter on the stack. It's a blank layer right now. And I want to scroll through my color enhancers to darken sky. And that's going to really affect the blues in the image. And it's subtle, but I really like this effect. And it's making the little bit of cloud that's in the atmosphere stand out just a bit more. It's giving some more contrast in the sky. And I really like the effect. So we're going to keep that one. And the next effect that I want to do is going to be using a filter. This is an interesting little technique that I've been kind of thinking about with looking at this image. I don't like the way that the snow is so dirty around the marmot's little den. And so I'm going to add another filter layer to my filter stack. And I'm going to go into black and white. And I'm going to choose just none. I don't want to have any effect. I just want to turn the image black and white. And now we have white snow. We have white snow with shades of gray. We've gotten rid of that brown effect. But at the same time, we've gotten rid of all the color on our image, which isn't really my intention. But the On1's Perfect Effects 8.5 has this amazing ability to use masks to target exactly where the effect is taking place in the image. So in this case, I'm going to go in, choose from my mask menu, Invert Mask. And that's going to apply a black mask over the entire image. Now I'm going to grab my mask brush and I'm going to paint the effect in with a perfect brush. The perfect brush will only affect tones that I put the crosshairs over. If I start painting right now, I'll turn the marmot black and white, but not the rest of the image if I don't go outside the bounds. Now I don't want to do that, so I'm going to go up to Edit, Undo. What I want to paint is the snow without the marmots. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to hit that section of snow that's got some brown in it, but not the marmot. I'm going to cross over here, I'm going to scroll down into here. I'm just going to start painting this snow into black and white. Here I can increase my brush size with the bracket keys. I'm just going to paint the dirt right out of the snow. We want it to be grayscale. We don't want to get little Junior's face, so we're just not going to put our crosshair over him. We don't really want to get up into the blue of the glaciers on the mountain. I'm going to let off the brush and skip over Mom and just paint in between her and Pop. And then over here behind Mr. Marmot's backside, And look at that. We now have a beautiful white snowy background. And I think the finishing touch for this image is going to be a little bit of a vignette. So I'm going to add one more filter to the stack. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to choose, I tend to like subtle and big softy as my presets for this filter. And it's interesting now, it thinks that the image is black and white. I've noticed this is a little quirk. Works just fine, but it doesn't realize I put a black mask over a lot of the image in color. But you can still see it applied the mask perfectly. Now, it's really dark in the sky, it's dark in the foreground, it's really drawn our attentions to the marmots. I think it's a little excessive at -100, so I'm going to back off of that a little bit in my filter options. I'm going to tone it down just a touch. Yeah, right about in, well, maybe a little more. Like 60 seems about right. I like that look. Now, one problem though is that it's really taking Junior and darkening his nose a little bit. I don't know why I'm calling this little marmot Junior, but somehow that has become his name because he's the little guy. So I'm going to, once again, use my perfect masking brush, and I'm going to just paint the effect out of just his face. I'm not going to cross over to the snow. I just want to get the vignette off of the little marmot's face. And there we go. So let's have a look at what this image looked like before. Our Lightroom edits were not bad at all. But by just spending a few minutes applying some intuitive filters in Perfect Effects 8.5, I've really made this image stand out. I would be really excited about printing this big now. So I'm just gonna click apply. It's gonna apply this effect to my Photoshop document and bring it right back into Lightroom. So here we are back in Lightroom with our finished image, and I want to use its survey view to just compare the initial camera image straight raw from the camera to the Lightroom edits that we made, which are pretty great. It's a dramatic improvement to exactly what's possible with just a little bit of time using ON1's Perfect Effects 8.5's intuitive filters to really just make the image pop, to make it stand out. I want to thank ON1 for letting me showcase what I love to do, to talk about what inspires me about photography and photo editing. And I'd invite anyone who wants to learn more about what I do and maybe take a workshop or just get in touch with me with questions about what I've been talking about here to hop on over to my website at hudsonhenry.com. Thanks so much. Hope you had a good time.